What does it feel like to forget? Whether it's where you parked your car at the grocery store or taking out the trash on pickup day, we all forget things from time to time. I don't know about you, but when I forget things, I can get anywhere from angry to sad to frustrated, or really just kind of feeling disappointed in myself. Look, I know, I'm a robot, but even robots and computers get corrupted memory issues from time to time. Even so, it's still my mind. I feel like it's my fault that I didn't remember good enough. And sometimes I'm really good at beating myself up over things. Hey, life goes on, right? We all continue on with our day, we get over it, and ironically enough, we end up forgetting it even happened. So it's back to business as usual. I remember like 99% of all the necessary information throughout the entire rest of my day, but who needs to hang on to how I forgot my keys this morning and made myself late? Here's the thing. What if I couldn't remember that much of my day? Or at least the important stuff? What if I could really only remember like 80% of all the really important information of my day? What if I struggled to remember half of it? And what happens when it's not just something that you forgot to get at the grocery store? Instead, you forget that you even went to the grocery store. Not just forgetting your friend's birthday, but forgetting your friend's face or their name. Honestly, I think I would get pretty frustrated very quickly. Feeling like I'm lost in my own home, in my own mind. I'd get angry with my inability to focus, or even just to hold on to the world around me. For nearly 55 million people worldwide, this isn't just a hypothetical. This is a very unfortunate reality for someone living with dementia. Now, there is a wide variety of different kinds of dementia that are out there, affecting different parts of the brain and affecting different parts of people's memory, which means that nearly everyone's symptoms, while functionally similar, are also pretty different. But that doesn't mean that the struggle isn't incredibly difficult both for them and for the loved ones that end up taking care of them. It can be an incredibly difficult thing in life to see a parent, sibling, or any other close relative forget your face or struggle with stringing words together, especially when they've likely been such a pillar of strength in your life. Someone you can look up to, someone that's taking care of you. And those are the people I want to talk to today, because I want to introduce you to a digital experience aimed at helping people just like you step into the shoes of somebody struggling to remember. In 2016, Claire Morley, Shella Ramanan, and Sharon Taylor all happened to meet by chance at the British games convention XX Plus Games Jam. See, the point of Games Jam is to bring women creators together from all sorts of different disciplines and challenge them to create a brand new game all in less than 48 hours. Claire being the programmer and artist, Shella being a writer with experience in games journalism, and Sharon being the audio engineer. At the end of the competition, although they didn't win the Judges' Choice Award, they did win the Audience Choice Award. And because of that, they were really inspired. They felt like they had something special. Although Sharon didn't end up continuing, it doesn't seem like there was any bad blood, especially since she was listed in the game's credits. As far as I could tell, she just went on to do her own thing, leaving Shella and Claire to move forward. So, they aim to finish the game and actually flesh out the protagonist's story, as well as the illness itself. Now, because none of the creators actually had any personal experience with diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's, and because they didn't have a clock ticking down over their head, they were able to reach out to healthcare workers, a mental health charity called Gaming the Mind, and other friends and family that had personal anecdotes that they could share. All that added with the early playtesters from later in development, and it all really added a lot to the authenticity of the internal dialogue that the protagonist feels, and I believe that is what gives this experience a real punch in the gut that you feel while you're playing it. In 2020, the studio, now known as Threefold Games, finally released Before I Forget, and that's what I really want to share with you today. I call it a game, and technically it is. To be completely honest, it's really a lot more like an experience. It is very short, only about an hour or so per playthrough. Honestly, it took me about 45 minutes in total on my first time through. In that incredibly short time, the game tackles a host of different concepts, like life, love, and loss. But the primary issue players face throughout the game is, as the title implies, what does it feel like to forget? The gameplay is somewhat like a 3D point-and-click adventure where you are trying to solve a mystery in your own home by collecting notes and clues left behind. For anyone who has a loved one that is or has suffered with memory loss, I would highly advise you prepare yourself mentally if you want to play this, or continue watching my video. And I also recommend playing the game and experiencing it yourself. It at times is a heartbreaking experience, but one that I carry with me every day, especially because I am someone who has a loved one who is affected by dementia. And stepping outside of that fourth wall, I'm genetically predisposed to having some sort of corrupted memory in my future. This video, however, is in no way meant to replace any experience that the game gives you, but rather I wanted to make some sort of a companion piece for really so that I could share my takeaways and kind of just spread the message of this game a little bit farther. With that said, spoilers ahead. We play as Sunita, and the entirety of the game takes place in her flat somewhere in London. The game opens up to us staring out a glass front door on a sunny day. As we turn around to see the flat, gray, dull apartment, we can also start to interact with things like notes and calendars. The notes seem to be left for us and remind us of things like a dentist visit coming up or pay the bills. And beside them, we can see lots of other similar notes if we're paying attention. As we interact with these objects, color bleeds across the bleakness of the apartment like watercolors on a canvas. In the distance, we can hear piano playing softly, and Sunita thinks about looking for Dylan, her husband. As we meander from the rooms of the house, there's a coat closet, a study, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen, and a bathroom. All the while interacting with miscellaneous objects from Sunita's past. Slowly, we can kind of learn a little bit about her, while also filling in the dull apartment with more vibrant, beautiful colors. As we interact with these objects and the color spills out of the room, it's worth noting that at no point does the apartment, or even the room that we're standing in, fill completely with color. There's always gaps between the objects, almost implying that there's still things to find in the room, but there's no more interactable objects. Pictures of Dylan and Sunita being young and in love spark memories for Sunita, and she recalls how they met and how their story began. In the study, we find a few trophies and magazines with Sunita's face on them, but she doesn't recall receiving any awards or anything. And at one point, she even thinks that her face on the cover of the magazine must be a mistake. Another one of our first hints at something being wrong is in the second bedroom. We can hear Sunita thinking to herself about her childhood and a special memory that she shared with her grandmother. Her grandmother taught her how to look at the stars, and that was something that truly sat with Sunita as a kid and inspired her to become a world-renowned astrophysicist. As we keep heading toward the music that we hear softly in the distance, looking for her husband Dylan, we're suddenly surprised by this black hole that spawns in the floor, here over a rug in the hallway. We can't go anywhere near it, and it's sort of a boundary to the player, but it's very jarring to Sunita. After exploring her home for a while and sort of getting used to the environment, we get a little thought pop in our head, just like a quest of some kind, and we need to use the bathroom. Innocent enough prompt. But the game has been very simple thus far, and only requiring movement and a single button to press. Walking over to the bathroom door, we open it and walk into a dark room. After looking around for a light switch, we find it, and we are standing in the closet. Well, that's kind of weird. I'm pretty sure this was the bathroom. But maybe I just didn't learn the layout of the rooms as quickly as I thought I had. Let's just go back to the closet again. Another thought from Sunita tells us that she really needs to go right now. So let's try a different door. Maybe I just got it wrong. And another door. And another door. And another door. And the closet. Every time. Every door leads back to this closet. I found myself frantically running from door to door. The hallway seems to loop around itself, and it gets even more disorienting. But just as we find the right door...
Too late. I couldn't remember.
The world fades out, and we wake up in our own bed. Pretty quickly, we go back to normal. We wander through the flat, exploring the rooms a little bit better and finding more detail. And while Sunita might have had a pretty quick recovery from that, I can tell you firsthand, as a player, I sure didn't. I really started to realize what this game was starting to sit at. If you didn't know anything about this game going into it, it's becoming very clear that this is no ordinary protagonist. Sunita is really struggling with her perception of reality, at the very least. To some who are familiar with the symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's, the way she speaks about certain things might sound all too familiar. For example, if you go back into the bathroom, you're going to see a days of the week pill container. You can read the label donepezil. Now, at the time of recording, I had no idea what this medication was for, but Sunita's response to the medication being,
Should I take them? I don't feel sick. They can't be for me.
the message to me was still the same. Moving over to the guest room, or maybe Dylan's study, sitting down at Dylan's computer, we can also read some emails. One about a presentation that Sunita had given that had some issues, and there's a few friends that are emailing being worried about her. There's also an old email about Dylan being away in America, but there's not too many details on that. Logging off the computer, we start to hear a phone ring in the background, which is conveniently right behind us. Unfortunately, when we go to answer it, the phone kicks over to voicemail. And the caller, Maria, says she's a little bit worried about us and she'll be coming over later just to check on us, and she's got a key. An innocent enough message. Sunita's reaction to it is panicked. She's worried because she doesn't recognize the name Maria and has no idea why she would be coming over, let alone why she has a key to her apartment. Let's go find Dylan. Let's ask him for help. He'll know what to do. Making our way past that black hole again, we're able to get into the kitchen this time, and we find some notes on the fridge. Some of them telling Sunita to stop buying so many peaches. This leaves her confused because...
But Dylan loves peaches.
why would he write a note like that? One of the notes tells us that lunch is in the fridge, but the only thing there is a cheese sandwich, and Dylan wouldn't make her a cheese sandwich. He knows that she hates cheese sandwiches.
I don't like cheese. So bland. Dylan knows that. Why would he make me cheese? Maybe he's getting forgetful.
Eventually, we make our way over to the radio that's in the kitchen, and that starts playing. But there's a note on it that says to tune to a different station, so we do. And as we do, color spills into the kitchen. Sunita recognizes this song. Dylan is playing on the radio. Suddenly, it's Christmas with partygoers just in the next room. And here we can find a picture of Sunita and Dylan, but as Sunita says...
Which year was that? We look older.
Older than she remembers. At this point, it's worth noting, we've completely forgotten about Maria. I don't know if this is just part of the gameplay loop being very quick. To me, it feels very much intentional. It's very clear that Maria is a caretaker for Sunita, and that she's the one that's leaving the notes around the kitchen. It's not Dylan playing a prank on Sunita, it's somebody trying to care for her that just isn't able to be there 24/7. It's not clear at this point whether she's a child or a nurse brought in from the outside, but with other context clues we can get in the game, it seems like she's a nurse. From here, we blur into a few moments and we wake up alone again. This time though, we're waiting at the dinner table, waiting for Dylan to join her. Getting up and looking around, we're just going to try to put some tea on for Dylan, and how did that cup get on the floor? Let's just pick it up. Scene changes again. Eventually, we wake up in a closet. This time we're sitting on the floor, surrounded by flyers and letters from Dylan. Reading them, we learn how Dylan was on tour, going around the world, playing his music for the people. And at some point, he fell ill, ultimately having to cancel his tour and somewhat leading to his retirement. Even though it's very clear, through the context of these letters, all of these events happened some time ago. Sunita is still very upset about this, and again sets off to find Dylan in this incredibly small apartment. It's at this point where the room begins to change. The hallway falls away into more confusing paths that branch differently than they used to. Voices are heard coming from different doorways, and they shut as we move past them. The small apartment becomes an absolute maze, covered wall to wall in newspapers, some of which have headlines that we've seen before. Others, though, have headlines like "Find Dylan" and "Where is he?" All the while, the music begins to swell and Sunita's panic increases. We hear Sunita's mind swirl with worry for her husband. Until that is, we finally come to a door. The only door so far we haven't been able to enter. One we've heard the piano playing through multiple times, but just haven't quite been able to get to. Opening the door, the room looks pretty empty, save a couch and a record player. As we set the needle, color spills out again and reveals Dylan's grand piano, just sitting there in the middle of the room. How could we have missed that? The music is playing, not from the piano though, it's coming from the record. Strolling over to the piano, looking at the bench, we can see a flyer sitting there with Dylan's face on it. And it's pretty clear at this point to anyone who's been paying attention, but this flyer is not a happy one. This flyer is from Dylan's funeral. Behind us, there's newspapers and tabloids talking about Dylan's death from 2 years prior. It's not exactly the grand reveal, but the pain that Sunita feels as she connects the dots.
No, you can't be. I can still hear you playing. How did it happen? Why did you leave?
Imagine loving someone so much for so long, and then discovering that you had forgotten their death years ago. I hurt for her. And on top of all of these things, Sunita also remembers the last conversation that she had with her husband was a fight. A lifetime together filled with sweet words and love, and it ended in anger. It ended with Dylan storming out. There's other things that are revealed in this ending as well, but I don't want to spoil any of those because I do really want you to play this game for yourself and feel the feelings like I did. Just know that the developers did a wonderful job showing that Sunita and Dylan have clearly had grand adventures, and she is not simply a lost old woman with dementia. She's a person. She had her own life, who had triumph, who had failed, who's had love, and who's had loss. And it's at this point that I want to ask you again, What does it feel like to forget? For my answer, it's a very small reminder of my own mortality and the fleetingness of life. I emphasize with Sunita's pain and frustration at her situation when she realizes the truth of what's really happening. But for most of the game, she's fairly clueless. She's forgotten that she had anything to remember. She's forgotten she's had any reason to hurt. She's forgotten to even miss her husband. And I would much rather be angry or frustrated than to let that melt away into confusion. Would Sunita eventually forget her husband altogether, just like she forgot Maria? Someone she assumedly sees almost every day? I don't know. If this is ever something that I need to deal with in the future, will I forget my friends, my family, my loved ones too if my memory begins to fail? Or would the confusion simply just grow until I lose myself to the world around me? Would I even remember to care at that point? Don't know. And to be vulnerable here, that is terrifying to me. What can we do then? As depressing as this video has been, there's other things that you can do. Dementia doesn't have to be the end-all be-all, and there's a lot of resources and people that are out there willing to help. So what can we do then? Well, I think the first thing we can do is tell our loved ones that we love them while we can. That's hopefully a given, but it's always worth saying. And if you've got any loved ones with memory issues, be patient with them. They're going through something that no human should ever have to struggle with, and none of that is their fault. But there's also things that you can do while you're young that might help you out in the future. For one, putting an emphasis on eating healthy and putting things in your body that are brain foods would be a good start. If you have a genetic predisposition or if there's something like this that runs in your family, talk to your doctor because they might have some more specific suggestions for you. Also, believe it or not, there's some causes of dementia that can be prevented if caught early enough. And if it can't be completely prevented, you might actually be able to slow the progression of the illness enough to a point where it doesn't matter anyways. Of course, if you have the resources to, please consider donating to a research foundation. I'll link a few below, but they're the ones that are out there doing the real work to save people from this absolutely terrifying illness. Remember, we live in a world where diseases that have plagued humanity since the dawn of time have been either eradicated or have become more manageable than ever before. It's entirely possible that within our lifetimes, dementia or Alzheimer's may end up being just a memory, better left forgotten. So I know that this is a totally different video from what I usually do, but I just want to say to anybody that's watching this part of the video, thank you so much for watching all the way through. That this is probably very clearly an issue that hits home to me, and it's something that I wanted to put out into the world and hopefully maybe do a little bit of good with it. And lastly, in lieu of asking for you to subscribe or like or anything like that, I just ask that you call someone that you love today and make sure that they know how you feel about them. I'm gonna go do that right now. I'll see you next time. And again, thanks a million.